Welcome everyone to today's webinar on the critical topic of marine cybersecurity. My name is Mark Locke. I'm the Marine Business Development Manager for Bureau Veritas Marine and Offshore in Sub-Saharan Africa. Very happy to be with you here today. BV recognizes that cyber threats pose a growing risk to ships, ports, and the entire global supply chain. And we are not the only ones to think this. In recent survey of 500 maritime professionals conducted as part of the industry report titled Maritime Cyber Priority 2024-2025, 31% of respondents reported at least one cyber attack in the last 12 months, leading up to October 2024. Additionally, 36% of persons interviewed expected an increase in cyber attacks within the next 12 months. Based on these responses, statistically, 1 in 3 of you listening here today will experience a cyber attack in the next 12 months. Many cyber experts are now saying that it's not a matter of if, but rather than when one will experience an attack. And the question is, are you suitably prepared for it? With me today is Panagiotis Anastasio, Bureau Veritas Marine and Offshore Cyber Technical and Market Leader. Panagiotis has over 15 years of experience in the maritime industry with a strong background in cyber risk management, digital transformation, and emerging technologies. Panagiotis will share insight into the unique cyber risks facing the maritime industry. He will discuss common attack vectors, review high-profile cyber incidents, and outline options for strengthening cyber resilience. Our goal is to equip you with the knowledge and tools needed to safeguard your maritime operations against evolving cyber threats. So let's dive in and discover how to navigate the choppy waters of maritime cybersecurity together. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to put them into the online question and answer section so that we can review them at the end of the presentation and hopefully give you some answers. Over to you, Panagiotis.
Thank you very much, Mark, for the introduction. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on the time zone everyone is connecting from. And welcome to our webinar. I hope that I will cover most of your questions and expectations during our session today. And just to give you an overview of what is going to be discussed today, we will focus a bit on what cybersecurity is actually doing for maritime, what is the need for cybersecurity in maritime. We will then provide you our insights on the maritime market and what are the threats and challenges for everyone from a ship owner perspective, from a yard or a system manufacturer onwards, and what's one of the biggest concern of everyone is the regulatory landscape. We will discuss about the current regulations in place and the ones that ship owners need to follow and abide with. Further on, we will provide you a very detailed insight on our services portfolio that matches your expectations. And last, we will discuss on a case study, and hopefully we meet all your questions and concerns by the end of the session. As Mark said, feel free to post your questions on the chat throughout the session, and we can clarify at the last part of it. As the maritime industry embraces digital transformation, we're also witnessing an increase in cyber risks that come along with this connectivity. From operational systems on board vessels to critical infrastructure at ports, the attack surface is growing rapidly. Cyber threats in our sector are not anymore theoretical. They can disrupt global trade, endanger lives, and cause serious financial and reputational damage. One key factor behind this rise is digitalization. As companies integrate more and more advanced technologies, such as remote monitoring systems, cloud systems, or any IoT solution which is out there in the market, they are at the same time expanding their vulnerability to cyber threats. Every new connection point is a potential entry for cyber criminals, and unfortunately, many of them are taking this advantage. Now, let's step back and look at the broader cyber landscape. According to the World Economic Forum's 2025 report, we are operating in an increasingly complex and uncertain cyberspace. Geopolitical tensions, growing reliance on complex supply chain, and the rapid rollout of new technologies are all making the environment way and quite harder to navigate. At the same time, we have a huge increment of regulations which are constantly multiplying. Organizations in every sector, including maritime, are under a huge pressure to comply with this evolving cybersecurity requirement landscape. This means that adopting a security first mindset is no longer optional. It is essential for resilience and for business continuity. Now let's zoom in to the maritime sector and how these challenges translate into our day-to-day operations. As digitalization accelerates, we are seeing vessels managed from shore becoming more and more increasingly, systems on board being more interconnected, from propulsion to navigation, and we have low latency satellite communication bandwidth provided that gives us a constant access to the ship system. We are also seeing the rise of smart and even autonomous vessels, where we see that AI and IoT are becoming quite standard for use. Each step forward in digital capability adds new layers of exposure. And while the efficiency benefits are huge, so does so are the risks. Our job here is to stay ahead of those risks by understanding how they evolve and how we can counter them. This slide here outlines the stages of digital evolution in maritime, from connected systems and smart shipping all the way up to autonomous vessels. You can think of it as a scale of dependency on the digital systems we see in the market. Early on, we used digital tools mainly for the efficiency and for reporting purposes. Now, digital systems and tools are becoming foundational to how ships and ports operate. Productive maintenance, predictive maintenance, real-time monitoring, and digital twins are now becoming a standard. But with that dependency, we have an increased exposure to cyber threats and more complexity to protect these environments at the same time. Here is how we see that the cyber threats in the maritime industry have escalated. Cyber attacks have increased by almost 900% in the recent years. We've seen ransomware hit major shipping companies, leading to massive disruptions. There is also a growing concern about cyberkinetic threats, malware targeting onboard systems that could cause physical harm or even sink a ship. The idea of hijacking digital control systems isn't science fiction anymore. We are also seeing more sophisticated IoT-based attacks and a surge in the use of zero-day vulnerabilities. These threats are growing faster than the average vessel cybersecurity maturity level. We are all aware about the geopolitical tension that has been ongoing in different countries for the past 2 or 3 years, that leads to constant cybersecurity threats evolution. We have an increment also on AIS and GPS spoofing, which are both a form of cyber attack. So the industry has started to realize how important cybersecurity is. Therefore, the market for maritime is expanding. It's driven by new technologies and by new increasing cyber threats. There are two main components here. One is the cyber solutions like firewalls and encryption tools, and the other is services, including consulting, integration, and managed cybersecurity. Key markets that have been identified are North America and Europe, and at the same time, Asia and Pacific is catching up quite quickly due to the trade expansion and port investments. And the drivers are very clear for the market: rising threats, growing regulation, and the need to protect critical maritime infrastructure. Our clients in the maritime sector face three major cybersecurity challenges. First, awareness and training. Most incidents are caused by human error, and we see that the human error is the number one factor for a cybersecurity incident. Regardless of on how secure a system is or a vessel is, it only takes one click from an untrained personnel to bring a mayhem on board the vessel or on the system that is being operated. The second challenge is compliance. We have a tremendous evolution of regulations from recognized entities like IMO, Ajax, EU regulatory entities, um, and these regulations are becoming more and more, and at the same time, harder and stricter in technical terms. These two first challenges comes a third one to complement, and this is the expertise gap that has been identified in the maritime market. Cybersecurity talents is something quite hard to find and to identify in the maritime sector, because it requires an additional level of expertise, which is maritime focused. With these three challenges, this is where we step in. BV has a global presence, has expertise from class, is able to provide advisory capabilities, and it complements the whole picture that you see here with a comprehensive suite of services tailored to the industry realities. That's been said, it is quite important that we focus on the regulatory landscape in maritime sector, which is becoming increasingly dense and complex. From the IMO's resolution MSC 42898 to EU's NIS2 directive, ship owners and operators now face a variety of overlapping requirements. These regulations emphasize the importance of integrating cybersecurity into safety management systems and ensuring systems are resilient to attack. However, compliance is not just for avoiding penalties. It's about fostering trust with clients, with insurers, with port authorities, and with partners. Certification societies like Bureau Veritas now offer cyber-related class notations, which help ship owners align with cybersecurity best practices and comply with IMO and IAX requirements. What you see here in this schematic is the mandatory compliance which is in place in the maritime industry. And I can help you understand this schematic a bit better by highlighting that the left part that focuses on the compliance towards IMO resolution MSC 428 is applicable to all ships in service. So that means that every vessel that has been constructed or has been signed to be constructed prior to July 2024. And on your right, you see what is the regulatory compliance required for new constructions and for systems, especially for constructions that have been signed 1st of July 2024 onwards. So that means that Bureau Veritas has translated the current regulations into notations, into a certification scheme that allows ship owners, yards, system suppliers to verify and be able to demonstrate the compliance with all regulations in place. These notations reflect different maturity levels for cyber preparedness. So think of them not just as a paperwork which is needed to be done, but as a structured path to resilience that will help all involved entities in an early stage and then quite often. The Cyber Managed notation is our foundational offering for IMO for compliance with IMO resolution MSC 42898. It requires that ship owners integrate a proper cyber risk management or take under consideration a proper risk management into their safety management system. This includes maintaining a proper and a full asset inventory of OT and IT systems, conducting risk analysis on the systems that are integrated on board the vessel, defining cybersecurity policies through rules, roles, and responsibilities for the crew members to follow, and also ensuring that the crew is trained and prepared. The message from administrations is clear. Cybersecurity is becoming a safety issue and one that inspectors and vetting authorities are actively looking for. For new constructions, and especially for vessels signed after July 1st, 2024, our cyber resilient notation feature goes a step further. It complies strictly with the IAX Unified Requirement E26 and actually focuses on the vessel's cyber resilience. It's mostly addressing cybersecurity at a very nurturing stage of the vessel, and this is why it mostly focuses on yard involvement. And yard is required to provide deliverables such as an asset inventory, a zone and conduit diagram, risk analysis again to be done, cybersecurity design documentation. But most important is that it's not a one-off requirement. These documents need to be maintained throughout the vessel's life cycle, and this is where the responsibility of the owner lies upon. This means that cybersecurity becomes a continuous responsibility, one often supported by integrator and external advisors also. As of April 2025, we have been working with plenty of new constructions that are in the pipelines of yards. We have already granted a big amount of cyber resilient notations to vessels to be delivered within 2025. And as you can see, the number here on the pipeline is constantly evolving, and you see here that cyber resilience is becoming the industry norm. It's best practice to establish a cybersecurity strategy quite early before construction begins. At this stage, key roles like the system integrator come into play. This person coordinates cybersecurity effort between the yard, the owner, and vendors. So it's quite important to define responsibilities early that will ensure a smoother implementation and a long-term compliance for the vessel. Our cybersecure notation is the most ambitious of the three notations. It's built upon the cyber resilient baseline, that means URE 26 and URE 27, and adds requirements based on the NIST framework. These requirements focus more on the detection and protection pillar of the NIST framework, and it is modular, meaning that it can adapt to specific vessel types, but it's mostly focusing on autonomous vessel or Navy ships. However, the full implementation is it's a bit limited on what the suppliers can deliver. We are working on updating our cybersecure version, and it is expected to be published in January 2026. And the aim here is to bridge the gap by staying ambitious but grounded in real world capabilities. On the complementary side now, for URE 26, we have URE 27. URE 27 focuses on the cyber resilience of onboard systems and equipment. And the idea here is to ensure that suppliers deliver secure systems right from the start, essentially shifting the cyber security responsibility upstream to the supply chain. Uh, URE 27 is nothing new, as it aligns closely and it derives actually from an IC 62443 standard. It contains requirements from 3-3 and 4-1. So for suppliers already certified under this standard, achieving a URE 27 compliance is a quite smooth process. At the same time, it reduces the friction for ship owners by ensuring the equipment is secure by design before installation. That being said, we have developed and we have enhanced our comprehensive portfolio of services to address every aspect of maritime cybersecurity, from people to process to technology. Whether your needs are strategic, like policy creation and compliance, or technical, like vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, we've structured our services to meet clients where they are on their cyber maturity journey and accompany them all along. As you can see here, our services fall under three pillars. First is the human element that focuses on the people. We offer a number of services that you see here, such as cyber awareness training, social engineering exercises, cyber drills, services that are relying on the human element and the human involvement for the execution of operations. Processes that follow the regulatory compliance. This includes incident response support, maturity assessments, regulatory compliance consulting that will ensure that your vessels, your systems, your premises are secure and are following the regulations in place without any penalties, uh, hazards, or penalties um, threat in the horizon. The last and most demanding pillar is the technology pillar that you see here. This is separated in two parts. So we are capable of providing IT and OT support. So for information technology and for operational technology. So we carry out IT or OT pen testing, threat modeling, and design reviews of systems. Uh, this holistic approach ensures that cyber resilience is not just about technology; it's also about culture, capability, and readiness, involving all elements in the maritime chain. I will go through separate services in my next slides, and I will provide you with more detail about them. Our global presence. Bureau Veritas has a truly global cybersecurity footprint. We have cybersecurity teams across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, along with a vast network of almost 7,000 plus auditors. So this reach allows us to deliver consistent service quality wherever our clients operate. And we also bring regional regulatory insights and local expertise into each engagement. Now, let's see and focus a bit on some of our services. We offer dedicated consultancy for each major maritime cybersecurity framework. For IMO MSC 42898, we are covering OT, IT, uh, integrated systems, policy documentation, compliance with the ISM code, procedures and training. Onwards with the new regulations then, consultancy for compliance with URE 26. We help yards and ship owners build and follow up on delivered five core requirements documentation, from asset inventories to risk analysis and test procedures. As I mentioned before, URE 26 targets the system and the vessel as a collective entity, and it follows NIST pillars for addressing a proper identification of the equipment, protection of the equipment with controls, technical controls implemented, attack detection, response, and recovery. As you can see here, these are the 5 deliverables which we can provide consultancy on building and providing to the yards and onwards to the ship owner throughout the entire life cycle. We require a vessel asset inventory that gives us a good idea and understanding of the systems integrated on board. Also, within URE 26, there is a list of systems in scope. So feel free to go through URE 26 paragraph 1.3, and you will see the systems in scope and also the vessels in scope. Then from the asset inventory, we require to have a good representation displayed on a zone and conduit diagram and representation of network flows. We need to have a proper network segmentation. We need to have safeguards between the zones that are defined. Then a compiled document of all systems providing security measures on board the vessel. This is the cybersecurity design description document. And last, a cyber resilient test procedure, which is something that heavily relies on the contribution and on the reporting of the integrator that will be performing the activities on board the new builds. Again, we are able to provide consultancy for compliance with URE 27. And what you see here is the IC 62443 family of standards. So this is a set of guidelines for securing industrial automation and control systems. The goal here of IC is to actually ensure that the protection of industrial systems from cyber threats and also address vulnerabilities throughout the entire life cycle of these systems. You will see that the family is separated in several different several and different sets of requirements. Our focus here is 62443-3. This part defines the system level security requirements for industrial control systems, including the security levels that must be met based on the criticality and threat environment of each system. It helps in determining the necessary controls to ensure that the system meets the required security levels. URE 27 set of requirement is is aligned with I would say up to level 1 of the IC corresponding standard. Moving on to the people side, we will focus a bit, and I will explain to you a bit on our on the holistic approach that we have and we take to cyber crisis management. With today's threats, it's important not just to invest in the prevention on using systems, but also um, on the response, as it is a matter of when and not only if an organization will face a cyber attack. Um, when an incident occurs, just to give you a good understanding on this schematic, starting from the middle point is where we see that the incident occurs. The first response actions relate to technical incident response to try to isolate and contain the incident. In most cases, this is where the incident ends and the threat is contained. However, if the threat is great enough, then the incident becomes a crisis, and therefore it requires uh, more strategic response and support from stakeholders beyond the technical department. Decisions around paying ransoms, liaising with media, informing regulators, this kind of stakeholders to be involved. Then finally, by implementing business continuity measures, ensures critical activities are somehow soothed and can be resumed at a certain point. So that means that the financial impact upon a cyber incident can be reduced. Moving to the left of the diagram, and in order to effectively support an incident response, crisis management and business continuity, we have to set up and establish appropriate governance procedures and frameworks. And then moving onwards to the training to be provided to the people and exercise through tabletop exercises, for example. This will ensure that what has been created, that what we have created and provided are fit for our purpose. Sorry for I guess someone was moving the slides. Now for cyber crisis exercises, they are also vital and effective. And this is a way to improve an organization cyber crisis readiness. There are different types of exercises that a company or an organization can undertake. Each have a different output and a resource requirement. The focus here is tabletop exercises. So uh, the walkthrough is quite simple. It starts with a 1 or 2 hour discussion with an IT team or executive team, where we discuss the role in the crisis in a case of a crisis incident. Then this will help us identify the new plans that are going to be written. Then after the preparation is done, this is a more intense full day or multi-day um, exercise involving people from different departments. Um, a tabletop is somewhere between a walkthrough and a live, for instance. This is the ideal combination for a realism and without too much cost. What you see in the two sides, up left and bottom right, these are some quotes from a survey from Hack the Box that indicates that many organizations are now seeking to prioritize tabletop and simulations. Um, just to give you a better understanding now on what the tabletop exercise is. First of all, a tabletop exercise is an exercise where a selected group of participants from a response or a crisis team are gathered in a room, and they utilize the response plan to perform the roles they would perform in a case of a crisis. For this exercise, there is a BV facilitator supported by one or more role players or facilitators. Then these participants receive information in the form of injected information over time. This can range from screens crashing in the office to ransom notes appearing on screens, media reports, any kind of scenario that we can think of that can be used for a tabletop exercise. Uh, then after this, the group has to work together, perform the roles in accordance to the procedures that have been already written or are in place, maybe through a policy, and coordinate the response to the crisis, take the correct decisions, track information, and depending then on the maturity of the team and the complexity it requires, then we inject additional information. This kind of additional injected information can come in forms of cards, of post-its, of emails, telephone calls, role-playing characters, um, yeah, many kind of scenarios to think of. Now, a typical tabletop program lasts around half a day. We usually begin with some initial training on cyber crisis management, followed by 2 crisis simulation rounds and ending with an evaluation. The tabletops can be executed for strategic entities or for strategic departments such as executives or board members, for tactical like function heads or crisis teams, or for operational departments such as local IT response or emergency teams. Um, our tabletop exercises are designed to be interactive. They are quite fun, but ultimately identifying strengths and areas of improvement in a response. Now, moving on the technology side, BV is able to perform technical risk assessment using any kind of framework. It can rely upon any kind of framework. Um, this gives the company or the organization or the assessed body visibility over the vulnerabilities and the confidence to make required cyber investments. On the other hand, our penetration testing includes both on-board and remote assessments. For example, we test crew networks, machinery networks, the systems, maybe system components such as ECDIS, often simulating real-world attack vectors. The goal is simple, is to identify gaps before the attackers do and provide actionable recommendations in fixing them. Here you see a bit more information on tests targeting the security of the machinery network, for example, or tests targeting the security of the crew network. Now, the point here is to by implementing URI 26 is to have these kind of networks segregated, separated, because in the past, since cybersecurity was not taken under considerations, we have witnessed the vessel network containing crew access, crew workstations, and at the same time OT systems, maybe used for operating the vessel, for propulsion systems, etc. For our case study, we've worked with shipping companies, terminal operators, and port authorities to deliver impactful cyber services. For example, we have facilitated several crisis tabletop exercises for tactical teams in the port of Rotterdam and in London, and provided incident response support for a container terminal operator. So these real life scenarios demonstrate how proactive preparation and collaboration can drastically improve an organization's cyber readiness and resilience. So to wrap it up, maritime cybersecurity is indeed and thankfully evolving rapidly. It's no longer just a technical issue, it's a business, safety, and also compliance priority. Bureau Veritas is here to help clients strengthen their resilience through our advisory services, assessments, training, and long-term partnerships. The goal is not just compliance, but continuous improvement. So I would like to thank you again on my behalf for your time today, and I'm happy to take any questions and try to provide an answer that will meet your expectations. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Panas. Great presentation. I certainly learned a lot. We have quite a couple of questions in the Q&A. I'll just read out. From Jan Smets. He asks, since E27 is based on IEC standards, would BV accept the type approval from other IX members?
BV and no other class society can reject, let's say, a type approval from other societies. Accepting it is the only way. However, there is no mutual recognition between the classes for the implementation of URI 26 and URI 27. And there is a valid reason behind that. Each class society, first of all, has to accept the documentation, whether it has been approved or not by another class. But then each class society relies on their expertise and on their experts to perform type inspections that conclude this certification process, meaning that BV, for instance, relies heavily on the eyes and expertise of our auditors to conclude the testing phase, and rather not on experts from other classes. So to shorten my answer on that, we do not accept by letter any other class certification. We accept that this will only make the process for us faster, and this is the same approach that has been decided from all class societies. So all class societies don't mutually recognize certification from others, but they rely heavily on their own internal processes. So we do the same. However, this is faster and cheaper.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question from Yuli Puruanto. We are currently seeking the shipyard in China to build a container ship. What are your suggestions in regards to shipyard selection related to the capability of compliance with cybersecurity in shipbuilding? Excellent question.
Yeah. So, first of all, we cannot suggest which yard the owner or the client should choose. But what I can give you, based on our insight, based on BV uh, insight and contribution, we are working with lots of yards in China, and we see that China is progressing quite a lot in cybersecurity. As I mentioned before, cybersecurity is the new norm. So it means that all countries, not just China, need to follow up, and most likely in a fast pace. But China is progressing quite well. Uh, we don't see a barrier or a difficulty there. Uh, we see that there are investments made by almost every yard, regardless if it's a small yard or a big yard. There are investments on cybersecurity and on experts that are able to provide what is required for the classification, but also what is required for the cyber resilience of the systems. So I would go with every yard in China. Like, I don't see any impact on cybersecurity, even if there is the lack of cybersecurity expertise. BV is here to support the yards to be able to comply and to follow up with what the regulations dictate.
Okay, thank you for that. Sort of linked to that a little bit is you spoke earlier about for URE 26, this person or this organization called a system integrator who controls very much the whole process. Are there any specific requirements or qualifications for the system integrator?
Um, from our perspective, the system integrator needs to be a knowledgeable person. First of all, needs to have a good experience, an engineering experience, I would say, to be able to integrate and test the system, because it's not only about integrating a system, but it's also on performing site acceptance tests that will show that the system is operational and is functioning properly. This is a crucial role that we also see for the implementation of URE 26, because one of the documents that is required for approval by class is the test procedures and the test reports. So we are not, let's say, a class is not certifying integrators. Class is able, however, to assist integrators or assist the yards to identify what kind of information need to be provided. And we are able also to follow a recognition scheme for a service provisioning, but this is mostly focusing on companies rather than an integrator entity as an isolated entity. I would, let's say, try to use integrators with a cybersecurity expertise, most likely certified by standards that they are out in the market. There are many that could be mentioned, but I'd rather mention none because I don't want to point towards a direction here.
Good, thank you for that. Another question from Ifi Solaki. How will OEM manufacturers, for example, ballast water management system suppliers, contribute towards the cybersecurity of a vessel? What documentation must they supply with the plan approval? Or is this all handled by the BV type approval on each piece of equipment or manufacturer? So, I think basically if there's a type approved equipment that has a OT system on it, will that OT system will that cyber system be automatically covered by the type approval, or is a separate type approval or assessment needed for the system?
Yeah. So type approval is a process that most likely focuses on a different standard. Usually the type approval certification process needs to follow URE 10. The URE 10 focuses on the stability or the structure of the system rather than the cybersecurity controls. What we do at BV is that we are able to provide a review attestation. We are providing an attestation which is heavily relying, first of all, on the certificate scope, on the system scope, which is already certified and type approved. And this review attestation is then focusing on the compliance of URE 27. Onwards to that, the system manufacturer needs to provide the information such as test plan and security configuration documentation to the integrator for the integration process. And then this is going to be part of the documentation of E26. So this is how this is the entire life cycle of cybersecurity in the maritime industry at the moment. You have E27, which is focusing on the systems, and then the integration on URE26 vessel will rely on the cyber controls of the system and therefore on the documentation accompanying this system.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question. We have just a few minutes left, so we could probably squeeze in another one or two. From Sunrok Kim. Regarding penetration testing, does the process typically involve simulating an attack up to the point of nearly incapacitating the system, or is it primarily focused on identifying vulnerabilities and cyber attack routes to provide consulting services?
We can do both. We have the expertise to do both. We can try to cripple the system, or we can try to focus mostly on the vulnerabilities that are going to be identified. This is to be tested and to be examined on a case by case rather than go straight forward for something that will break the system. For instance, we need to have to identify what is the purpose of this service, and then we see how we handle it.
Okay. Jonathan Grund asks, what part of IEC 62443 does the product have to be certified to comply with URE 27?
So URE 27 is a mix of IEC 62443-3-3. So if you examine the URE 27 document, you will see which requirements are deriving from 3-3. And then there are a couple of requirements coming from 4-1. So I would like to focus on one thing for my answer here, is that URE 27 focuses on a system as a whole and rather not at the component level. For the component level, there is a different set of controls, a different set of requirements to be followed, and this falls under IC 62443-4-2, which is excluded from E27. So E27 is cyber resilience of a system and not a component of a system.
Okay, thank you, Pana. That's pretty much all we've got time for. Thank you very much for a very, very interesting presentation, and thank you to everybody that attended today. Thank you for all of your questions. I think certainly some really, really good questions. I think this topic is of a lot of interest to all of us, and it's gaining even more interest. And we look forward to the opportunity of engaging with all of you further to assist you with your cybersecurity needs. So please feel free to reach out, visit our websites, engage with your local BV representative, see how BV can assist you with your cybersecurity needs and going forward. Panos, we've got 30 seconds. Anything you'd like to add just to close off?
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I hope I answered the questions and I met your expectations. try to follow up offline. I would be more than happy to provide you with more insights and more answers, I would say. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and hope you have a fantastic day further.